I worked at MECCA for 5 years, so I've tried practically everything when it comes to creating a long-lasting, flawless base. So here's how I actually layer products that don't move all day. First, and probably one of the most important steps, is skin prep. I already have some of the Charlotte Tilbury Magic Cream, that's why my skin is so glowing. But this has been one of my more recent favorites because since I saw Makeup by Mario doing makeup, he talked about how he always uses an emollient cream before any makeup application. And because this is so emollient, it just makes everything you put on your skin after melt in properly and not look dry and cakey. If your skin is too dry, your skin will overcompensate, sometimes producing more oils, or it could seek moisture in your foundation and start to eat it, literally causing that patchy makeup look that no one wants. This I would recommend for normal, combo, and dry skin, but if you do have oily skin, Clinique Moisture Surge. This is more of a gel consistency, so it's more lightweight, but still gives that hydration and plumpness that anyone needs. Even if you're oily, you should be skin prepping. This is my secret, not secret, because I tell everyone to buy this product to making your makeup last all day to all night. Hourglass Veil Primer. When I was a makeup artist at MECCA doing 5 to 6 applications a day, I would put this on, I would say 95 to 99% of clients. It's definitely pricey, but you only need the smallest amount. Honestly, that is more than enough. If I blend it out for you, you can see a little goes a very long way, and it is the most unique velvety texture that just blurs your pores. It actually evens out your skin tone a little bit as well. The coolest part about this primer is that it makes your skin sweat and water resistant. So if you are someone in a really humid climate or you get super sweaty, pop this on, and when you get sweaty, you literally just dab off the sweat droplets and your makeup will still be practically flawless. I have combination skin, so I like to focus it mainly in the centers of my face. And the main question I get with this is it okay for dry skin? If you are skin prepping properly, like I have with the Charlotte Tilbury or something super hydrating, layering with a serum, etc., you will be fine. But I also recommend just putting it in the spots that do wear off a little bit easier. So usually that would be the center of your face. But if you are super dry and you feel like your makeup is not really like sliding off, then you probably don't need it. But like I said, as long as you're skin prepping properly, it shouldn't feel very drying on your skin. It only feels drying if you're not skin prepping. Let's get the hair out of my face because things are about to get a lot more serious. My biggest tip and hack as a makeup artist to make sure your makeup isn't looking cakey and it still has some radiance is mixing an illuminizer in with your foundation. This is Charlotte Tilbury Flawless Filter. You have seen me use this a million times. This is not a primer. It's not designed to make your makeup last longer. That's why I use the Hourglass as well, because that is that's job. And also, it is not a foundation. As you can see, it doesn't really add more coverage. It evens things out. So yes, it probably adds a tiny bit, but it is not designed to be a foundation either. It's designed to add glow. So what I like to do is I like to add a decent amount. As you can see, that should be enough. I then grab my Holy Grail foundation. This has been my Holy Grail foundation for 8-9 years, honestly a very long time. Nars Sheer Glow foundation. I have heard so many rumors of them discontinuing. Oh my god, that nearly went everywhere. I have heard rumors of them discontinuing this foundation, and I was actually lucky enough to meet Francois Nars, the guy that actually made Nars, and I straight out said to him, please do not discontinue my favorite foundation, and he laughed in my face, and I have video footage of that. I'm not saying go run and buy it because it's getting discontinued. I have not heard that it actually is happening, but I have heard that this is a foundation that's kind of only popular in Australia. And the reality is we are a small market, so if this is the only place that it's really selling well, of course they're going to get rid of it and replace it with another foundation. But as you can see, I just apply it practically on top of the illuminizer. Nothing is blended in together. And in terms of how much I'm using, I'm honestly pumping out the smallest amount. I'm not doing a full pump. I'm just grabbing small amounts till I feel like I've got enough on my face. But the biggest tip I can give you as a makeup artist is start with less. You can always add more. It is harder to take it away. So as you can see, we've got a little bit of the foundation and the illuminizer, and I just grab a damp beauty blender, always damp, and I start bouncing it in, and it will just blend those two formulas together and also blend it into my skin. The whole reason why I absolutely love the Nars Sheer Glow foundation is, as you can see, it does add a decent amount of coverage, but it still looks like your skin. And it definitely was a product that, again, like the Hourglass Veil Primer, I put on like 99% of my clients because the shade range for one in Nars is really good. 2, it's kind of a satin finish because, as you can see, there is some glow to the skin, but it's not overly glowy. So I could make it suit someone that has a dry skin type or even a slightly more oilier skin type. I will say if you are a super oily skin type, honestly, nothing beats Estee Lauder Double Wear. It's just a lot more matte and better for oilier skin. But like I said, this is quite a customizable foundation. I have combo skin, and that is exactly why I use that Hourglass Veil Primer in the T-zone to prevent any excess oils coming through. And also, as I'm showing you a long wear routine as a whole, there is some other steps I do to make sure my makeup really lasts. And then the last reason why I really like this foundation that I sort of touched on is that it is really easy to layer. You could definitely wear less than what I've got on today to make it look super, super natural, or I could definitely add more and layer it, and you can build it to that fuller coverage. So it's great if you have an event or a wedding. And if you are looking for something kind of similar but a more affordable option, MECCA just released this foundation. It is the Life Proof Satin Blur, and honestly, it is quite comparable. I have an addiction to my Nars Sheer Glow foundation, but if I didn't have that, I'd be using this. Personally, I'm really happy with the coverage the foundation is giving me. I don't want to add any more because we are going to go in with cream bronzer, cream blush, concealer, etc. And sorry for having lipstick on my teeth. But if I did want more coverage, this is the time that I would go in with the Nars Soft Matte Concealer. I personally like doing this after I've done foundation because I know where I need to conceal or that needs a little bit more coverage. And if you are someone that is a little bit more acne prone, this is the best concealer because it's pigmented and it's more matte. It's not going to bring attention to any spots you're concealing, and in that case I highly recommend you do not go shades lighter than your skin tone. You want to go as close to your skin tone as possible. If you go lighter, it will bring more attention to it. At any point, if I feel like my makeup is feeling dry or things aren't blending as well, especially in the cream stage, I would go in with my MAC Fix Plus. This is not a setting spray, this is a finishing spray. It changes the finish because it's going to add hydration and glow. This does not have any ingredients like film forming polymers to actually set and prolong your makeup. So if you're dry and cakey, this is definitely a good one to have on hand. Then I'm going to go in with my cream bronzer. This is by Morphe, and these are so creamy and good. I also really like the MECCA. These are a little bit less creamy and a little bit more contouring kind of vibes, whereas this is more bronzy kind of vibes. If I was a beginner, I would recommend you put it onto a sponge and then blend it out. But to be honest, I just go straight onto my skin, just popping it in all the areas that I want to bronze, but also it does give shape. I honestly don't think for every day that you need to be contouring. Even just using bronzer will add that shape naturally. You can see because the formula is super creamy, it is a bit sheer. So I may as well add a little bit of definition of the MECCA. And you can see it's just slightly cooler in tone, kind of similar, but because this formula is a little bit more, I guess, pigmented, and like I said, a little bit less creamy, which isn't necessarily always a bad thing. It will just put on a little bit more pigment to the face. And you can see it is sculpting. Like I said, you don't really need to contour every day, but I just wanted to show you the difference in formulas. And now I look snatched and I have cheekbones. Also, to be fancy, I'm going to show you one more formula. This is by Chantecaille. This is a gel bronzer, and this is very warm. And as you can see, it's like a liquid gel formulation. I actually use this sometimes when I'm on holidays to mix in with my foundation. This gives a bronzy glow, but as you can see, this is a lot warmer. It all just depends what kind of vibe. You definitely don't need all three. You probably don't even need two. Just choosing a product that suits your needs. But I will say the trick to making your makeup look professionally done and more long lasting is usually layers. You need to wear more makeup, but doesn't necessarily mean caking it on. It just means layering and layering the right products. Just using whatever's left over on my sponge on my forehead just for some continuity. Then I'm going to use one of my new favorite blushes. This is the Nars Multiple. They actually discontinued these and then reformulated them. So this is in the shade Orgasm Crave. It's kind of like a nudie pink. I personally like using blush after bronzer so I can blend it into the bronzer and create a seamless look rather than looking like a Neapolitan ice cream, even though sometimes I do end up looking like that anyway. I'm not too worried where I'm going to put this because I am going to put concealer underneath my eyes. So if I blend a little bit too high, I know I'll clean it up. Again, like I said, I applied straight to my face because I just feel like I know I can get away with it. But if you are a beginner, apply it to the sponge or the back of your hand first to warm it up. It's usually the better option because sometimes when you apply directly to your face, you might find that products might set, they're a little bit harder to blend, and then you're going to have a freak out and a panic attack, which isn't very fun. And that's what I'm doing right now, just grabbing a little bit, adding it on. It will make it slightly less pigmented, but of course, again, starting with a little and then layering till you get your desired effect. I personally like putting a little bit on my nose and also a little bit above the eyebrows. By the way, I did pick up the wrong eyebrow pencil today. That's why they're looking a little bit ashy and not as warm as what I like, but we move on. Next, I'm gonna add my Holy Grail concealer. This is the Kosas Revealer Concealer. And I like to just apply it kind of in a corner bit and then a little bit here. Pretty much just focusing where any darkness is. If you want to color correct, you definitely can. I personally like the Bobbi brown color correctors. This one is their stick. It's like a cream formula. You just want to put it on before you put on concealer. Finding one that isn't too bright. I feel like the biggest thing on social media for clickbait is using like a super bright peachy tone. If you're fair like me, you definitely don't need that. You just need something quite light like this, and kind of putting it in the same areas, applying a little bit less, and then applying your concealer on top. Personally, I don't feel like I have that much darkness underneath my eyes, so a concealer is usually enough. Also, if I feel like I need something a little bit more heavy duty, a little bit more full coverage, the Hourglass Vanish Concealer. But as you can see, this Revealer Concealer is just blending out like a dream. I would say it has like medium coverage. It is quite hydrating. And why I like to put it in this outer area is I actually like blending it upwards, not past this point of the corner of my eye. I kind of use that as like a stencil, but I like to push it to that point so I can clean up the eyeshadow, because any eyeshadow I'm wearing, I don't want it further down than that point because that will drag down the eyes. Blending into that blush a little bit, again, trying to give like a soft-ish transition so it's not so like harsh Neapolitan lines. And I also make sure I do try and conceal up here in this area because that's where a lot of the darkness comes from. So as you can see, I'm almost lining my beauty blender up to that corner of the eye. I usually just like stamp it a little bit just so I'm not going too, I guess, hectic and blending past that point. Sometimes it does happen. Sometimes you just need to get your eyeshadow brush and fix it. But that's how I like to blend my concealer to make sure that my eyes are also looking their best. And then sometimes I just grab my beauty blender, whatever's remaining, and I kind of go after the concealer underneath my contour and all that area just to clean it up and again lift the face. I also sometimes add concealer on my nose. I've had really bad skin barrier on this side of my nose especially. You can see it's not sitting 100%, but I've also found sometimes when you add too much makeup, it just makes it look more dry and more cakey. So sometimes it's better just to leave it. At this point, I like to just drag a little bit down my neck with my beauty blender. I don't like adding wet foundation or any kind of liquid foundation onto my neck simply because it is more likely to transfer onto your clothes. I also think it's kind of unnecessary. I think your foundation should be a good enough match to your neck region, but also the reality is because your chest is usually quite a lot lighter because it's not seeing any sunlight or you're wearing clothes that protect it, your face and your chest aren't going to match 100%, especially when you're adding bronzer and blush. So I aim for more of like a transition. Like I know this is going to be like probably the darkest point. I just don't want it to be like a stark difference to my chest. Same with the ears. You can go over the ears a little bit, maybe add a little bit of bronzer just to make sure things are as cohesive as possible. But you know, sometimes we forget these things and it is okay. This is a very rare occasion, but you know, I felt like being fancy. This is the MECCA Max Illuminizer. It's just like a liquid highlighter. You kind of want to do all your creams together before we start adding powders. I know a lot of people can add like cream blushes after the powder for like a little bit more of a dewy look. You can do that. Again, makeup technically doesn't have any rules, but the way that I like to teach makeup is making your life as easy as possible. And if you start getting complicated like that, that's when you're going to run into issues, your makeup looking patchy and things just not looking right. So I would recommend you do all your creams together. So I am just going to add a little bit of cream illuminizer just on the top of my cheekbones. You can literally feel that just for some extra glow. This is when we go back to the part that I was saying that I would do things in my makeup routine to prolong the makeup and help with the oiliness and just in general making your makeup last as long as possible. And that is using a setting powder, not a finishing powder yet. Setting powders actually control oils and set your makeup. This is a Laura Mercier translucent powder. You've probably heard about it. Super popular. Honestly, it's very popular among makeup artists even still. I personally like to grab a little bit using a small brush. This is important. And I just coat the bristles in the lid. I kind of give a once over look to my face. I'm like, is everything blended how I want? Because once you set it, it is not going anywhere. So say if you have any creases or you've noticed something's not blended as well, fix that right now before you add powder. And then what I like to do is I like to go back into those oily spots. So for me, that is my T-zone. And what I like to say to people is there is a difference between looking glowy and looking shiny. And I definitely play a little bit on that fence, because sometimes I do look shiny, but also I would rather look shiny than dry. So we all have our preferences, but I will say making sure you mattify these areas is super important. So like the top of your lips, you don't look like you have sweaty upper lip. I just grabbed a little bit more powder, your chin, in between your eyebrows, the center of your forehead, And I like to just do little tapping motions to really just set it. I want to push the powder into those areas. If you are oily, you might find that you would want a bigger brush and you will do more of your face. I don't really get oily on the side of my face, only the center, so I'm just making sure I do that. I feel like my makeup can get a little bit creasy around the smile lines. Also, another reason why I push and not swipe is because we haven't set the face yet. If you start swiping, you will disrupt the creams that are underneath. So it will get patchy and just gross. So just pushing it is the safest option. Also, for those who are new to following me, I do not set underneath my eyes. I don't feel like it is necessary. I'm 28. Obviously, that is not old. What even is old these days? But I feel like underneath the eyes, the skin is so thin and so dry already that you don't really need to set underneath there. It's not getting oily. Honestly, concealer, in my case, and I've taught so many people to do this as well, in so many people's cases, it does not move. If it does move, the best part is because you have not set it, you can grab your ring finger if you see any creases and just lightly blend it out. The issue is once you set your under eyes, one, it can make it look more dry and more crepey, but also if it does crease, which it's natural, creasing is very normal because our eyes move, we have fine lines, we have texture underneath there. You can't really do anything about it once you've set it. That's just a little something. I personally don't think we all need to set underneath our eyes. I think if you've got like a wedding or, you know, a special occasion, maybe you want to set underneath your eyes. It is a personal preference, but I don't 99% of the time because never say never. This is going to make people laugh so much, but I absolutely love my Hourglass finishing powder. I have done so many videos on this on my TikTok and Instagram, and make sure you're following me there about this powder. Also, don't talk to me about the fact that Hourglass is leaving Mecca. I'm happy to buy it anywhere. That's not the biggest issue. It's more just I used to sell this all the time and I could not imagine working at Mecca and not sell this in store because Hourglass is some of my favorite products ever. But back to the story. I have done so many videos on this and people told me that I was using this wrong. And honestly, I do agree. People are saying that you should, you know, set your face first and then do your bronzer, your blush, and then go in with your finishing powder to diffuse everything. And I've been trialing that and I do agree it makes it look better, but I do like using a little bit of this in my normal routine, how I have been doing it for years and years since this has been my holy grail. And that is adding it at this stage as well. So I'm just gonna grab a powder brush and really get in there. As you can see, I've hit pan and there's not a lot left, but I will say the best part about these powders is that they do last a very, very long time. And what I like to do is again, push in because I don't want to be swiping. And why I like doing this now, and I will show you how I use it later, is because if I was to do my bronzer, it is a little bit more of a sweeping motion naturally. And I don't want to disrupt the creams underneath. So I do like adding just a thin layer all over, especially the perimeters of my face. This one is in luminous light, so it does add quite a bit of glow. So if you are oily, focus this on the perimeters of the face. So then when it's time to go in with my powder, bronzer, and blush, which I will do in 2 seconds, everything's just going to blend better and I won't have to worry about, you know, this motion ruining the creams underneath. This is kind of the product I like taking down my neck, because it does add a tiny bit of color and it just evens everything out. Next up, I have my trusty Too Faced Chocolate Soleil bronzer. This comes in multiple colors, but this is milk chocolate. And I like to just add this where I add that cream bronzer. As you can see, I am kind of bouncing it, but you know, to be honest, I don't do a lot of this, I guess because I am always hesitant of like stuffing up those creams underneath. Like I mentioned before with the MAC Fix Plus, the Hourglass powder is kind of the same thing. It is not going to set my makeup. It is more changing the finish. As you can see, it has added a beautiful glow, but because it is powder, all powders are going to set to a certain degree, but that's not its main purpose. That's why if you are oilier, I highly recommend you use a setting powder first. But it does mean that when we're going in with my bronzer, like I am now, it is not tacky. It has taken away that tacky feeling, so the powders on top are going to blend a lot easier, and that's why I think it's good to do it where I did it and after as well, which I'll show you. Again, taking this down my neck because it's powder, it's more forgiving. And then because I'm the most high maintenance person ever, and this is what I've always done, I always like to create like a base of a matte bronzer and then going in with my glowy Hourglass bronzer. Kind of the same thing, but maybe being a little bit more liberal with it. This adds a little bit more warmth and glow. I just feel like layering products, like I said, it just makes it look more professionally done. They last longer. You don't have to do as many steps as I do, but if you do want your makeup to last, honestly, I think layering is the best thing that you can learn. And And also learning about setting products, finishing products, I think really helps with that as well. And if I ever feel a little bit muddy, which I do here, I just grab my small powder brush and I just try and blend it out a little bit. But like I said, that's why it's better to start with less and then add more, because once you get into a scenario like this, it is kind of hard to remove and you just have to deal with it. This is a point that I would go in with my powder blush. This is actually a recent find for me. These are the Kosas powder blushes. I don't know if this one was limited edition or not, but I know they have lots of colors. Just grabbing a powder brush and just coating the brush pretty liberally. I like a lot of blush, and just applying where I normally add blush for a bit of color, blending into those powder bronzers. I like doing blush pretty much last because I want it to be the most pigmented thing on my face. Again, I like adding a little bit to my forehead just to make everything look cohesive, because that's where the sun naturally hits. That's why we put bronzer there. A little bit of pink tone makes sense, because if you were getting sun, you would look a little bit pinky, which we want to avoid. Wear your sunscreen. Also, another trick I've been teaching people is grabbing your eyeshadow blending brush and some blush, and you can just pop this in the crease. Again, cohesive little things that make a big impact. I just feel like I look more alive. Don't worry, we are nearly finished. I am going to go back in with that Hourglass finishing powder, not setting powder, for the 500th time, just using the brush I used before. Honestly, everything is looking really diffused. I usually add a blush that's like way more pigmented, and that's why I think using the finishing powder at the end really helps, because it just like dulls everything down and kind of just blurs everything. As you can see, I'll just add a tiny bit just so you can see. It just creates a beautiful glow. I actually like adding this all over my face, but as I mentioned before, if you are quite oily, you probably want to avoid your T-zone, because again, there is a difference between looking glowy and sweaty, and I definitely play on the fence on that one. But even with my rough skin texture here, I just feel like it kind of diffuses everything. And I just remembered, if I needed any more coverage, I would go in with my Charlotte Tilbury Airbrush Flawless. So say if I was getting to even this point of my makeup and I was like, I want to try and cover this, or my foundation doesn't look as even here, I would go in with this because this adds a little bit more coverage. But honestly, I am really happy with how it looks. And also, if you get to this stage and you want to add more blush, add more bronzer, do whatever you got to do. And what I got to do is take away that dryness on my lip that's been there for the whole time. Then at this point, if I was feeling super cakey, I would go in with a finishing spray first. I'm honestly not feeling that, and I also added this throughout my makeup, so I think it looks good. The next thing I would go in with is a setting spray, not a finishing spray, and technically not a fixing spray. Setting sprays have film forming polymers. I've done multiple videos on my other channels about this. Let me know if you want an in-depth video here and giving my recommendations. But these both have ingredients in there that is actually going to prolong your makeup, help with it preventing transferring. It's not going to make it transfer proof. That's more a fixing spray, but it's going to prevent that. It's going to prevent fading and creasing, and just in general prolong your makeup. This is a new one by MECCA Max. I would say this is almost like a finishing spray in the sense of it adds a lot of glow, a lot of hydration, but it does have those ingredients that the MAC Fix Plus doesn't, to actually prolong your makeup. And then my ultimate holy grail, this is oh my God, I was about to say Urban Decay. Urban Decay is the one that I used to wear all the time when I worked at MECCA, but they have reformulated it and I haven't tried it, so I can't recommend it. But this is my ultimate holy grail, I promise. The Charlotte Tilbury Airbrush Flawless Setting Spray. This actually kind of creates like a film on your makeup. You can kind of feel it, and it just helps with transferring. I think the thing that I like to convey to you all, and not to overpromise, is nothing really makes your makeup transfer proof. Like I said, a fixing spray can do that. I've kind of described them, like I said, in my other content, and MECCA doesn't really have one from my knowledge. Those are kind of those like hairspray like setting sprays, but they're fixing sprays, because those are so heavy duty that can make it practically transfer proof. But the reality is, if you have, warm hands and you're touching your face, or you're, I don't know, going swimming or something, yes, there is like waterproof makeup, like I said, the Hourglass Veil Primer, but like nothing is going to make your makeup transfer proof if you are doing those things. It's still makeup. Makeup has limitations, so doing this is going to help. I like people being realistic with their makeup. That's why I talk about creasing, and just, we have skin and skin is skin, so don't be unrealistic with it, but these do really help. And that's why I like to teach about this. I'm really passionate about teaching you that it is skin prep, it is primer, it is using the right foundation, it is how you set your makeup, and a setting spray that's actually a setting spray. All these things in combination is going to help your makeup be as long lasting as possible. It's not really just one step, it is all of them combined. I always use this, so let's go in with the MECCA Max, because we can always do with a little bit more glow. My biggest tip to you is, before you spray your setting spray directly on your face, give it a Spray on the back of your hand, perfect. We know that the mister is working because so many times I haven't shaken it or something's gone wrong, and we've all done it. You spray it and then it's just like on your face and then it ruins everything. As you can see, I'm not shy with the setting spray. Personal preference, honestly, you could probably go 1, 2, 3, or some people do crosses, but you know, I get in there. At this point, I might just add a little bit of powder bronzer to my chest even, just making sure everything is as even as possible. But that is how I do a long-lasting makeup using all my favorite products from MECCA as an ex-employee. I'm literally about to go to the gym and I know that I can work out in this makeup and it'll look pretty good when I walk out. And like I said, that's not just because of the setting spray I use. It's not just because of the primer. It's not just because of skin prep. It's because I did those steps, I layered them, and now I know it's going to last all day and all night. Hopefully I taught you something new or I helped you in some way. Please let me know. Please subscribe, leave me a comment, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.